there are very few Indian artists, and I can actually count them on one hand, who can be recognized on the streets of India. Um, this is why I'm very glad to be sitting with Atul Dodiya, who has a wonderful new show opening at the Mumbai Gallery weekend here at Chemould Gallery. And it is one of his favorite themes ever. The whole series is based on one of his favorite themes, which is Hindi cinema. And I'm going to let you hear more about it from Atul himself. Atul, thank you so much for your time, and your show opens tomorrow, and I'm really glad to be talking to you.
Thank you, Namrata. It's uh, been pleasure always to show certain kind of work in a certain city, always. And this particular body of work, I was very clear it has to be here in Bombay at Chemould, and uh, so I was working for last 2 years on this series of paintings, because one of the things is that I have been listening to Hindi film songs, particularly from the golden era, as we call it. So mid 40s to mid 60s, and whenever I am painting, the radio very early that was the radio which was on, and now of course with the CDs and records and YouTube, which provides you all this detailed and very rare songs as well. So I have been listening to these things, and but particularly during the pandemic, um, when we were not able to go out and just painting at home, I was doing small scale watercolors, and I discovered again that, oh, there is a radio salon is still there, and one could be in the morning between 6 to 8. But they also have a kind of available on YouTube any day of the specific.
I didn't know that.
Yes, it's still on, and one could kind of um, uh, listen to these songs, and they have a very special divisions, within those 2 hours. That it starts with some bhajan, and then there is some um, uh, film sangeet kind of thing, and then the final thing is between 7:30 to 8, which is purane filmon ke geet, and always it ends. The whole program ends with KL Saigal's song.
Oh,
That
really?
has always been, it's fixed for years since it's opened. So I listened, and then I realized that, oh, so many songs which I knew, but where to find and how to go back to those songs, and and then also there was a discovery of new songs and new people and new songwriters, and so music directors, singers, and then one day I thought that, what if I do a portrait? Because particularly I must tell you the detail about a face which it's there in the show. Is a poet called, a lyricist called Rajendra Kishan. Now Rajendra Kishan's young age photograph, which when I saw, I felt it's such a beautiful structure, the face, and I said, I'm just going to paint this, for myself, because the face inspired me. So once I thought about that, then I realized, okay, what if I do some others as well? And then started. So, uh, in I would take around 2 days, sometimes 3 days, sometimes even a day, I would finish a portrait. And then there was a body of work, I realized. But I thought that who will be interested in this specific people, specific portraiture,
But
specific.
you've always been a film buff.
Yes.
Cinema, especially Hindi cinema, has always held you in thrall.
Yeah.
So why has that been such a source of inspiration for you?
Well, cinema is something definitely I am, very. Um, if I would have not been a painter, I would have been film director. That is for sure.
Really?
Yes, because when I was in school and when I decided that I want to be a painter, and during exactly that time, Doordarshan has started then in '72 in India, and when I saw on Saturdays they used to show regional films, alternate Saturday regional film, that's Marathi or Bengali or Kannada film, and on other Saturdays, there were European films they would show. And when I saw those films, and then, yeah, these films are very different than the whatever so-called Bollywood or a popular Hindi cinema which I knew. And at home, my parents were quite a film buff, and my mother particularly, and she would remember everything about the songs, about the situation, and about the yeah, the other details about a specific film, which she would share and talk with us. So since then it was there at home,
Yeah.
and then I felt that, but then I realized that cinema is a very difficult medium.
But what a loss to Bollywood that they lost out on you,
Well,
and what a trump for the art world. I mean, you really
well,
are the
yeah,
superstar of the art
I
world.
don't know all this, but I must say, tell you that it's when uh, painting was comparatively easy. That I
Yeah.
sit in a corner with a notebook and keep on drawing or painting. But as you know, that cinema is a um, big collaborative work.
But is this where your initiation into European cinema came? Because you've had Fellini, you've had
Yes,
Ingmar Bergman,
yeah,
all of these European filmmakers
yes,
alongside Satyajit Ray.
right,
I mean, they've all sort of informed your work in so many obvious ways.
yes, true.
Is this where you saw on Doordarshan?
Or do Doordarshan essentially to begin with, yeah. Like I remember seeing very vividly, I remember clearly remember seeing first film of Ray.
Yeah,
I'd heard about Pather Panchali, but
yeah.
I first film which Ray film which I saw was Nayak with
Okay,
Uttam Kumar and Sharmila Tagore. So
nice.
that was the film which I saw, and I felt that this is completely different life-like thing and different kind of cinema.
Yeah,
And I got more and more interested in that kind of cinema, but soon realized also that it's expensive medium, it's a large teamwork,
yeah,
and there is a lot of technicalities are involved. And then to go and learn in Pune, the Pune Film Institute was
yeah,
there,
yeah.
all that. And my mother said, no, you can't go, you have to be in Bombay, all that.
I can also draw some parallels in your work, and I'm not embarrassed to say Satyajit Ray as well, because he was such a realist in his work.
Yes,
And I find your art to be like photorealist in
yeah.
so many ways. It's almost like images are captured in time.
Hmm.
Do you feel that as well?
Uh, well, yeah, I mean, realism is something which sometimes I feel it itself is so fascinating. The way things looks or the way people we see them, in their surrounding or in their situation wherever they live or where they work and all. That there is no need to alter it further and create something more and more complex thing out of that. As it is also, it's quite fascinating. So that could be one of the reason. But I one thing I realized that I have to do art which should be understood by many.
Yeah,
That
accessible.
was always
Yeah,
my concern, and I love to share. Actually, exhibition is what? It's just a sharing.
yeah,
Of course, we have a market, we sell, we
yeah,
all those kind of things are
yeah,
there, but essentially it's about sharing.
yeah.
So when people come, how they see, what they don't see, their body language in front of the painting, which all which all these things matters to me. So I come to gallery and look at people, how they look at my paintings, all that. So I think, and
What did you find when you saw people? How do people, like a layperson?
yeah, no, what happened that, like sometime, because I have also worked, which apart from realism, there are a lot of references and quotations
Yeah,
from world art. And partly they understand, uh, you see, in India, we don't have um, the museum going audience. We don't have many museums, the kind of museum which you see in America or in Europe. Of course, I'm not comparing India with these countries, but still, our problems are different. But still, so they are not well informed in that sense, and so they wonder. Then they scratch their head, and they are kind of baffled. And I think if you are able to baffle your viewer or puzzle, then that kind of a thing remains longer time with a viewer, because they keep on still saying no, no, but why, I mean, what does it mean, what does it say, that also happened, and it is said in such a probably lucid or a realist in realism, that uh, uh, it's understood as far as the formally concerned, but conceptually there are things which becomes difficult
Yeah.
to digest sometimes,
Yeah.
like if you have a painting with a image from Raja Ravi Verma,
Yeah.
and then you have in the same picture plane, you have a Dadaist Marshal Duchamp's nude
Yeah.
descending staircase,
Yes.
along with the Descent of Ganga by Ravi Verma. So my mother knows very well the story of Descent of Ganga, but she doesn't know who is Duchamp. The same way, when I exhibiting outside, people know Duchamp, but they don't know Ravi Verma.
Ravi
So
Verma.
this conflict, which interests me.
Yeah. How interesting. I'm going to request you to discuss this exhibition with us. Can you take us through why why music is so important to you, and in your words, explain to me. The press that the little release that the gallery sent to us said that it was really important for you, that golden age of cinema, because it was truly a very secular climate. So tell us what were your thoughts when you put together these portraits?
Well, one of the things, of course, that what they created together, lyricist who wrote a song, composer, and the person who sang.
Yeah.
Together, these people, generally with the popular cinema, the impression is that it's all sentimental and it's not intellectually certain quality or level. It doesn't have that kind of a thing, and technically is weak and all that. It partly that could be right, but at the same time, I must say that the music of that era, they were so committed, the writers, composer, and singers, that what they produce is I think it's a world class, I feel. And why we still go back to those songs, and why people, after listening for years and years, and everyone remembers these songs, people hum, and people immediately, sometimes people don't even know the films, or
Yeah.
even the situation in the film, but people know the song. There is so much power and impact on millions. So essentially it's a beautiful art which they produced,
Yeah.
and which the melody, the rhythm, whatever you call it, which I like very much. That was the starting point to begin with. And then I realized that there were people before partition, when there was a film industry in Lahore, there was people in Bombay and Calcutta, and how all of them were trying to do something with whatever knowledge they had about cinema, uh, and produce films. But at the same time, um, when it came to music, you know it 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 had a appeal which was uh, uh, which was too special, I would say. I don't know how to define it, but it was too close to people's heart at somewhere. I also know that essentially, boy meets girl, girl meets boy, boy loses girl, and the girl loses boy. Something. It's not so. There are sad songs and there are happy songs running around the trees, which we know all that. But still, the music was too special. The way they would use the various instrument and the wordings of. So they were
Very
all,
high
yeah,
quality poetry,
poetry. Yeah,
as well
exactly,
as
exactly.
technique,
Yeah,
in terms of
exactly.
the
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
classical.
yeah. Yeah, and also the Urdu language, the Hindustani as we call it, which binds everyone,
Yeah.
whether it's south to north and east to west. We are all, when as soon as Hindi cinema comes, we are all together. Otherwise, we have our own culture and our own languages and all. So I think, in that sense, I feel that so many people after the partition, like Noor Jahan, Ghulam Haider, and Nisar Bazmi, and many people who left,
Yeah.
went back to Pakistan.
Yeah.
Uh, but otherwise, they were all. So when I remember, I was looking at the interview of Dilip Kumar and Noor Jahan after many probably 40, 45 years later when they met, what kind of emotional moment was for them as well as for the audience. It was too special, too unique, I would say.
But there's also this sort of diversity, this very open, inclusive climate that Bollywood has enjoyed for very long, and especially I feel that 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 the musicians of the time enjoyed. There was Mohammed Rafi, Shamshad Begum, Naushad, Suraya.
Yes,
There was a very beautiful mix of Muslim artists as well as
yes,
Hindu artists,
yeah.
and I think that is something that you have highlighted very beautifully as well.
Yes, I because I realized that at home, um, if I tell you, shall I tell you a little bit story kind of a thing?
Yes.
It's when I was in school, it was a Gujarati medium school in Ghatkopar where I was born and brought up, and we had a teacher. Um his teacher's name was his surname was Pisori. So and he used to write beautiful in his beautiful Gujarati handwriting, the news or sometime on a Sanskrit subhashit on the board, as you enter in the class. School was very much Gandhian. We had a Gandhi statue, and at home also the atmosphere was very much Gandhian. But then there was a once, like we were all hardly 10, 12 years young boys. It was all boys school, and someone said, "Do you know that Pisori sir is Muslim?" So, and then there was a buzz about among things, but all the boys, nobody knew that what does it mean? It meaning what? But that somewhere it was told as if it was mentioned that as if is he someone else?
Yeah.
Rest of the Gujaratis are there was Brahmin and there was a Kapol and there is a Vanik and all kind of community Gujaratis, West and everyone spoke Gujarati only, but and the Pisori himself spoke wonderful Gujarati, and um, or maybe he was a Gujarati Muslim, whatever. But so we were wondering. So when I came home, I was wondering because at home the names were so like a daily uttered name kind of, whether it's Suraya or Noor Jahan or Mohammad Rafi or Talat Mahmood or Naushad and Sajjad Hussain and Shakil Badayuni, Majru Sultanpuri, all this, so then uh, I felt, but they were so much part of our daily life, living vocabulary, and here, why this kind of a thing? Of course, and that is something which still bothers me, this difference. And my whole series, I've done more than 200 paintings about Gandhi, which is also has its roots there in this kind of a young age, what you are fed. So that's there. But so in that sense, I felt, I mean, there was such a community and there was so much. And if you listen to those old interviews on radio or sometimes now, the audio available on YouTube and on the internet, where you feel that there was so much kind of a bhaichara. you know there was um, there was a competition, like Tarat Mahmood in his one of interviews says there was a competition among ourselves, but there was, it was a healthy competition, and we were all um, like brother and sisters, like a family. We used to work like so that. And now today's India and today's time, we have a too much.
And you have chronicled that all along, because I remember the shutter paintings you did when Babri Masjid was demolished, and I find that art, to be real art for me personally, has to be political, and it has to be a reaction of to what is happening around you. And I find that with you especially. Um, do you agree that art must be political? Would you agree that your art is a very strong um, mirror to society?
Well, actually, I personally don't agree with that art has to be political. Art, because to create even a simple work of art with two apples on the table could be a masterpiece, and the
Yeah.
whole you depict a whole epic Mahabharat, and it could be a ordinary work of art. So, so that there is a difference in that. Though the greatest subject could be Mahabharat, no doubt,
Yeah.
and two apples is not a subject at all, you
Yeah.
know. So that's one thing. But I think in today's time, I personally feel it is artists' responsibility, any citizen's responsibility for that matter. But as far as the artist is concerned, I think uh, well, it's also very personal for each individual. But I personally feel that as an artist, I have to speak. I have to also, since in the beginning I said I love sharing. It's all about sharing, talking, and getting other fellow person engage in
Yeah.
my activity, what I'm doing. And if my work of art can give a joy to someone, I'm more than happy. So in that context, I feel that if there is a artistic joy, but then there are also thoughts, and there are also ideas, and there are also uh, feelings, whether emotional, creative, political, all this has to be conveyed, you know, and so in particularly, sorry.
Do you ever feel that you needed to mute it down? Did you ever have a fear?
Uh, Well, that happens, but I think what happens, when you are in a studio, when you're painting, then you just do it. You have to do it. It kind of, even like I remember when I did the shutter painting called Mahalakshmi, where the goddess Mahalakshmi was painted on the roller shutter. And when you open the shutter, there are these three young girls who hanged themselves because father could not pay dowry in Kanpur in 1968. Sahu sisters, they hanged because they knew that father was a normal ordinary school teacher, and he could not afford dowry. And so I feel that at in Hindu family, when a girl child is born, we say Lakshmi has born, Lakshmi has come to the family, and she will bring the prosperity. Yeah. So what I did, that I painted the shutter, cover of the shutter with a full figure of Mahalakshmi smiling and in a pond on a lotus. And when the shutter goes up, her head remains there on the hood, because the only shutter moves and goes inside. And with the industrial sound, every time I invite viewer to pull it down, throw it up. When you do that, the scratching happens because of the roller gets rolled on the spring. So it gets damaged also. So I invite viewer to where they, in the process, the work of art gets damaged and the smiling face remains up. But then when you open it, there is a bleak portrait of this ghastly portrait of three sisters hanging over a fan, in the um, in black and white, in sepia tone. The newspaper photograph was based for that image, and I did it. So I knew that it's a more like a newspaper headline kind of illustration, but I thought that I have to do it and I have to say. So when I exhibited also here in Bombay, people were little taken aback, but at the same time they agreed. They said, yeah, it is true that this is what happens in our country.
You also mentioned Gandhi, who is, I think, more than any artist. You've done more than 200 works
Yes.
on Mahatma Gandhi. What does he signify for you?
Well, this basic to begin with, the sheer um, love for fellow human beings, respect for fellow human beings, and you know, concern for fellow human beings. So that is something. And the political freedom of the country, of the nation, is one thing. But I think in the process of achieving freedom, the um, the methods which he adopted, those were quite fascinating, I feel. And also I feel that they were quite conceptual. Like if you see the structure of his ashram, or wearing khadi, or lifting the pinch of salt, or dandi march, non-cooperation, all these things are conceptual ideas.
And very new, very path breaking.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, exactly. So I think so that was something which I felt that um, has to be addressed. And in today's time, particularly when so much violence we see around, and so much tension and hatred among the communities, among the you know um, people. So then you feel that um, then you think of people like Gandhi, of course, and we can't afford not thinking or not thinking at all about
But
Gandhi.
you know, Atul, he's also the most difficult muse,
Yeah,
I feel. I mean, more, he's the most famous public figure in India. Every city has a road named Mahatma Gandhi Road. Every government office, every police station has a photo. He's omniscient, omnipresent. How does he continue to inspire you? How do you continue to represent him in so many ways again and again?
um, partly because see now I remember M.F. Hussain, painter, who also painted Gandhi. But since his was a very special stylized manner in which he would paint, so that was different. I wanted to paint Gandhi the way he looked, his physical appearance, which mattered. We were a lean, slim, thin guy, and walking fast and whatever those documentaries as a school children what we saw, and so I was curious, and the people around him at that time, whether it's Nehru, Sardar, Maulana, and others. So their commitment and their body language, everything was so unique, so special, so much committed for a one single cause, and so that is something I felt quite. Um, uh, uh, I was interested in that aspect, but at the same time, um, uh, Gandhi methods, were quite unique. I felt, and his concern for every small detail in life and while living, or it's about whether it's children or whether it's animal or uh, you know
I mean, the compassion was
compassion. Yeah.
absolutely pure. Um, but as much as history, as we have discussed, I find there's also so many pop cultural references with you. It's almost like a schizophrenic range of influences in your art, which has so many layers and makes it so rich. Uh, would you like to discuss that?
Well, of course, because at the age of 10, very early, I was clear that I want to be painter
Yeah,
and nothing else.
yeah.
So the painting was uh, uh, so, and if I am painting, then that means there are other people. And I remember Akbar Padamsi, one of our finest painters, who was very dear friend of mine, and he said, art generates art. Art, that means you see painting and you feel like painting. It's not that you see a sunflower and you feel like painting sunflower, but because you have seen the sunflower painted by Van Gogh, which you are familiar, you feel inspired to paint sunflower or something like that. So it's a art generates arts. It's not life which generates art. You see someone and you don't feel like looking at someone, you feel that, oh, one should paint, but because you have seen the figures painted by from pre-Renaissance to the postmodern time, one is familiar with um, the art methods. Uh, so this I don't forget, I and particularly, my yesterday there were students from Chicago, from School of Art Institute of Chicago, and I was telling them my biggest regret is that we say we went to JJ School of I went to JJ School of Art. I studied oil painting. Now oil painting, not there was not a single original oil painting I have seen here of Van Gogh or Cezanne or Rembrandt or Picasso, because it's not available. And actually, in art, it is important that you see the not reproduction, but you see the original painting, the scale, the size, the way oil has been applied, the thickness and thinness of surfaces, with a paint. So all these things I would just imagine. So my biggest ambition at certain point was that I should go somewhere in Europe or see the original painting of the masters. And then of course there was a French government scholarship which came in 91, 92, and I was in Paris during that time. And I saw, so when I saw that, it was all it. I don't forget. Memory is such a thing that we remember, things. And when I'm trying to paint something, I'm reminded of something, I would incorporate that as well in my work. So there are references, and then there are quotations
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
allusions, whatever you call it.
Yeah.
So that started appearing, in the painting, and then um, so it's all, yeah, very much into.
You spoke about your pandemic paintings. You made 360 plus
Yeah.
paintings in the pandemic, and they were different in that they were smaller in size and they were watercolors.
Yes.
How did you get along with that medium? Because it's very different from the stiffness of an oil painting. Did it sort of liberate you? Did it give you a new expression?
Well, actually, oil, yes, that's true, because oil is my something which I enjoy very much, no doubt. But and watercolor was always is it's a difficult medium,
It has its own
because once you
moods.
apply something, a patch or something, it remains there. You unless you put a black on it,
Yeah.
otherwise you can't get rid of that particular patch, in watercolor. So it's also very pure because it's just a few pigment and little water, and you create a kind of universe out of that. So that's there. But my wife Anju used to paint in watercolor for many years. She still paints, and so I was looking at her, that, and she would never give up. I said, okay, now it's difficult to continue with this specific image or work because it has gone out of control.
Yeah.
But she would not give it up, and she would come back and she would again, work on it, and then the ultimately painting would be good. So I had seen that because we were used to share in those
Yeah.
days,
Yeah.
early days, our studios were same, and I would see. So then I thought, let me try, and then I tried works on paper in watercolor. So I have been doing watercolors on time and time, and mainly I enjoy doing my watercolors during the monsoon, because in Bombay we have how heavy rain we have and how the damp weather is. So the paper is damp and wet, and it takes time to dry.
Yeah.
So during that time I make sure that during that particular period I do watercolors, and I manage.
Nice. Tell me about Anju. I mean, I really, really love your work, but Atul, on record, Anju is my favorite artist ever. Um, now your daughter Biraj has also come out into her own, and she's come out so beautifully as her own artist. And the three of you have become literally what is often called the first family of art in India. Um, how do you feel to see Biraj's work? It's very different from the figuratives that Anju and you excel in. Tell me a little bit about Biraj as an artist and Biraj as a daughter.
Well, she is. I like her work, and she is um, quite articulate.
Yeah.
She has a good sense of humor,
Yeah.
and she, at the same time, she is extremely serious as far as her work is concerned. So, what happens in personal life as well as in the world around, uh, and all that, she thinks very seriously what's happening in Gaza, say for example, you know with Palestine people, or otherwise, um, the with women, or with Dalits, all these things, though her work doesn't directly show those kind of political concern, but it her work does has um uh, that melancholic aspect, which I think it comes from loss, and losing some dear one, or um, um, there is this um, feeling about how one would come to terms with certain situation in life which are not necessarily happy moments, all that kind of a thing. So, and uh, she's able to she manages quite well this very abstract, difficult area, in her own work. And yeah, I think probably she studied abroad. Like we were more emotional here. I feel, of course, like there's a large time gap, generation gap. But we were taught as if, like here while learning it in Bombay, it was more about the emotional feelings I felt, so I did it. What you felt, why you felt, or what you did it, that we were not able to express. Whereas here in Chicago or in New York, where she studied, she, I think, comes to terms with all that aspect. So her articulation is very good, and I learn a lot now from her. She would kind of tell me,
That's
"Papa,
very
not like
special.
this. It should be like this. Don't say this. These are not the right words." All kind of,
She's also got the both of you on Instagram, yeah?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So what is a day like in the Dodiya household? Like who occupies more wall space?
Oh, well, actually, we have other friends' works at home which are there, but at the same time, uh,
What is dinner table conversation?
whether uh, the Van Dyke Brown will work or a burnt umber will work, that kind of a thing in a specific painting, which probably we must have seen each other's painting.
Yeah,
So essentially, it's all about art. But generally, we have a lot of, because all three of us are interested in literature as well as in cinema.
yeah.
So lot of young filmmakers, which Biraj has introduced us. So because I still care much for masters like, as you said, Fellini and Bergman and Truffaut and Godard and Ray and Kurosawa and Ozu, all these people. But she would introduce us Wang, this Wong Kar-wai and uh, Santha Lackerman and
Yeah,
many, people whom I didn't know actually,
yeah,
frankly.
yeah,
So the new cinema, new literature, new books, what she is reading, what I have been reading.
yeah,
And I often talk about, because I often read a lot the um, regional poets, in translation sometimes
yeah.
Malayali or Malayalam or Bengali, or others I read fluent Marathi. So the Marathi and Gujarati poets, I talk about them. And then Anju would kind of also, Anju is also big, um, she reads a lot, yeah. And so,
Are you also each other's first critics? Give your, I mean, obviously, when you make an artwork, possibly your family
well,
is the
yeah,
first.
generally we have this one condition is that um, to go to each other's studio except me, mine on, not just both of them, but anyone can come anytime and I don't mind. I paint, my music is on, and I all kind of discussion is going on. So because I was brought up that way in a chawl where my neighbors would see me. I was painting in veranda,
Yeah.
and they would see and they, oh, that yellow has been there for like 7 days. When are you going to change? My neighbor would say, and that kind of a thing. But generally we are quite ruthless with, we say very frankly, "Okay, this works, it doesn't work," and we give reason. But sometimes we accept, sometimes we have very strong likes and dislikes and opinion. So then we just,
I'm trying to imagine the veranda and the chawl, but I find that that sharing of knowledge that you were talking about, despite your superstar status in art, I've not met anybody as uh, down to earth and accessible. And there's a legend in the art world which says that Atul will always make time for students.
yeah.
Tell me about that because you are always encouraging students, you will do walkthroughs with them. Tell me why, especially with JJ, which is your alma
Well,
mater.
yeah, there is a reason, because I still remember my very first day at the JJ School of Art, and I noticed that you know, as I was saying, that we feel deprived of many things. We don't get opportunities in that sense of course, now with in the internet and um, is available, so we get to know everything what's happening in the world. But uh, there is in the formative years there is so much anxiety. There is everyone. My parents were told, okay, he should not go to fine arts, They used to tell my father that, no, you have five daughters, and this two sons. Other son is younger to Atul, and there's no future in this. He will starve. So, but he allowed me. He supported me, and I feel that, like at every places, this anxiety that after passing out from art school, what, whether someone will get the gallery or to exhibit. Even if you get that opportunity, will one it be able to sell the paintings? Should one um, just churn out the kind of stuff which people like, or one should stick to what really one wants to
So
do?
you give them career
So
guidance.
I kind of, I give this kind of I mean, I talk about this thing, and I myself feel still like a student, that it's not that I have achieved and I have arrived at something, but because I have experience age wise, so I know that because I also learned these kind of things from people like Giv Patel and Sudhir Patwardhan, um, Tayyab Mehta, and Akbar Padamsi. They were there like that. They were very generous with their time, and they were kind of, how they would and how much, like when I told Akbar Padamsi for the first time to come to my home all the way to Ghatkopar from Nepean Road, he said, I'll come. He came. He told my father that he's good, allow him to paint, support him for 2 more years, support him, kind of a thing. And that was such a big help. So I feel that, how one should um, build, or my first priority is to kind of really, if I have to kind of give advice or something, then to bring out solid confidence
Yeah,
in the self,
yeah,
you know not to say that, oh, it's very difficult, it's hard, and you will be never able to achieve, or it's tough thing. So that is something. So they also feel good, they like it, and they feel that, okay, it's possible.
yeah. Atul, may you always be a student of life. May you always be a chronicler of the world around us, and may we always be looking at you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. Nice talking to you.